Hello and welcome to Inside Music, episode number 142. I'm your host, James Shotwell, and it's great to be with you again. I know we talk a lot about having a really good episode for you or having something really special about to be shared, but this week, I sincerely mean it. My guest is none other than David Gunn, the founding member and lead vocalist for King 810 or King 810, or as they're often referred to, King. And if you're not familiar with the group, let me give you a quick backstory. Formed in the last decade in Flint, Michigan, King has a very hard-hitting approach to music that combines stream-of-conscious lyricism that is recorded prior to the rest of the band with this hard-hitting approach to rock and roll that is just it's really unique. It's something that I think no one else in music is doing. I'm not sure anyone else in music has ever done it, and Gunn is kind of the mastermind behind it all. Like as I said, when he enters the booth, he usually has nothing written down or very little, and he just lets the thoughts and ideas flow. Once his vocals are finished, the rest of the band comes in and they build an album around the things he has to say, and that has given them a career that is unlike anything else in music right now. King 810 is about to release their new album, Suicide King, on January 25th, and that's a self-released album. The group has previously put out records with labels and whatnot, but this is self-released, self-produced, created from the ground up by everyone involved in the band, and the results are nothing short of something that we're going to be talking about for quite a while. And if you're not a part of the world of hard-hitting music, don't worry. There's still a lot for you to gain here, because this conversation with Gunn is one of the most interesting that I can recall having, because we do talk about music and we talk about life in the industry, but we also just talk about the state of the world in general. Gunn is a very well-spoken person and a very educated person, maybe not in the sense where he has a lot of degrees on the wall, but he reads. He reads a lot of books. He knows a lot of smart people, a lot of thinkers, a lot of psychologists, a lot of theorists, and that informs the way he sees the world, and he likes to talk about it, and that's what we do. We start the conversation off with a little discussion about Jordan Peterson. We get into a discussion of a book that we've both kind of been a part of in terms of reading and enjoying, called The Coddling of the American Mind, and then we get into the music itself. We get into his decision to create an autobiography, a memoir, if you will, that's coming out with the new album Suicide King, how it came together, and his whole thoughts on sharing your life story and finding something to say in a world where it feels like everyone is often saying the same thing. I didn't really know what to think about this conversation before it happened. I'd heard King 810 and I wanted to talk to them. Anyone that listens to this show for a long time knows I'm a little impartial to people who are from Michigan, but I didn't know what to expect. And Gunn is one of the most interesting and well-spoken people that I've ever heard. As you will soon hear for yourself, he speaks at a very confident, slow tone that makes it easy to not only understand what he's saying, but to enjoy it as well. He's a really good talking voice, and I feel like I've probably pumped him up enough, so let's just say that this is a conversation you will not want to miss. Before we get there, however, there are a few quick things we need to go over. First and foremost, this episode of Inside Music and all episodes of Inside Music are brought to you by Holix, the music industry's leading promotional distribution company. Now, what that means is that Holix works with record labels, publicists, managers, and independent artists from all over the planet to share new and unreleased music with tastemakers. And by that we mean journalists, bloggers, vloggers, radio, anyone you would consider a gatekeeper in the world of music. Holix is there to connect people with music with people that need to hear that music in order to help artists get ahead. To learn how they do that and gain access to a free 30-day trial, all you need to do is visit holix.com and sign up today. That's HAULIX.com. And when you visit the site, in the upper right-hand corner, there'll be an option to sign up. Just pick a plan that works for you and sign up. Your credit card will not be charged for the first month of service, so if you don't like it, just quit. No harm, no foul. But if you love it, stick around, and you can use the same platform for music promotion that is trusted by artists like Metallica, Chance the Rapper, Blink-182, Niall Horan, Sony, BMG, Warner Brothers, and the list goes on and on. Many of the guests you hear on the show, including King 810, use Holix right now to promote their latest releases. So again, visit holix.com. That's HAULIX.com. I also want to encourage you to follow Holix on Twitter. Many of you know that Inside Music has had its own account on Twitter for a while, but we're going to be shuttering that in the very near future and just folding everything into Holix. So go ahead and visit at Holix. That's HAULIX. You're probably getting sick of me spelling it, but it's not a word that's, very familiar to a lot of people. So one more time, that's HAULIX on Twitter. And if you want to follow me, you can do that as well. It's at James D. Shotwell. That's James D as in Doug, Dog, Dynamite, Dodgeball. You get it. Shotwell, just like it sounds. Go ahead and find me on there for hot takes about music and film and, just dumb stuff about my cats. Finally, Inside Music is now on YouTube. Just head to YouTube and type in Inside Music or Inside Music Podcast or just Music Biz, that's B-I-Z, and you will find every episode of the show, including the one you're hearing right now for your listening pleasure, absolutely free. Head over there and subscribe today. It would mean a lot to me. I think that's everything that I have, so please sit back, relax, and enjoy this conversation with David Gunn.
Jordan Peterson gave a talk there, I think a couple months ago, maybe.
Yeah, in October at 20 Monroe Live. That's in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, that was the last time I think I remember being there.
Are you a big Jordan Peterson guy?
I don't know what I'd be signing myself up for by saying a big Jordan Peterson guy, but I definitely agree with him more times than I don't.
Yeah.
Read both of his books and whatever.
I understand what you mean, though.
A few hundred of his lectures.
Yeah.
It's almost like, not that I think that this is the way it should be, but it's like a political or religious thing where I don't really like the question, I guess. Do I agree with him? But yeah, 99% of the time. But when you ask if I'm a big Jordan Peterson guy, it like assumes a bunch of things. You know what I mean? Kind of like it's too shitty of a question to like answer, because then I might get pinned. Yeah, not that it matters. Not that I guess it matters, But it's just a funny question, I guess.
No, I absolutely understand what you mean, because it's weird how I get exactly what you mean, because some people get so sensitive about talking about him. I've read the books too, and I saw his speech, and it's not even, one of the reasons I wanted to see him live wasn't even so much to hear him talk as to kind of gauge the audience, because it is such a weird thing that I guess his book has kind of manifested this weird discussion around it and around some of his ideas. And I think at the core, he has some really good thoughts and stuff. I think sometimes the way that those rules or his ideas are expressed is what really gets him in trouble more than what he's actually saying.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
No, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about...
It's a sad time.
It's a sad time. It is. It's weird, because I'm like you, where if somebody brings it up, and especially if I don't think or know that they've actually spent any time with the material, that as soon as they start to ask me questions about it, I'm like, you know what, let's just talk about something else.
Yeah, not like I don't enjoy talking, but I feel like that about everyone. And it's like, just to use the example, not specifically, but when you have a clinical psychologist sitting up there, a scientist of, from one of the most prestigious universities in his country, talking about psychological ideas, and you get some stupid fucking 17-year-old stand up and say some stupid bullshit. It's just like, it's very annoying that someone even has that. I don't believe in gatekeepers, and I don't believe in those types of things, but it's very annoying when you get a stupid kid like that even has access to that type of genius. You know what I mean? You get it on social media too. You have people that are not saying anyone's perfect or anything, but very knowledgeable, very thorough, very well invested in these certain ideas, and then you get some stupid kid, for some reason, not even if I agree or not with what they say, doesn't matter, but the idea that you have access to that is just like, it's kind of annoying. I don't know. That's one thing I don't like about the whole I guess the whole network. It's where you can have this stupid kid, the most thing that do with his whole life is the idea that he got 5 minutes of attention from this person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hate that. And I've been reading The Coddling of the American Mind in my free time. And I feel
Oh,
like,
Jonathan Haidt.
yeah,
Yeah, Jonathan Haidt. Yeah, I read that when it was a blog. I think it was an article,
yeah, it
but he
started
made
out
it
that
into a
way.
book. I think. Was
Yes.
that like Lukianoff and Haidt? Is that what?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
who it
what it
was?
is. Yeah.
Yeah, he he's sharp, man. I like his ideas. He
Yeah,
has a
I agree, man. I think he really put it down in a good way, and he gets into a good idea of how this like kind of what you're talking about, this idea that social media has created, where it's like giving everybody a voice and kind of the unexpected consequences or maybe drawbacks to this idea that, like you said, that people have access to these geniuses, and because they have the same amount of access, get this weird feeling of like, well, what do you know that I don't know? And it's like, I don't know. They actually know quite a bit more than you know.
yeah, and it's kind of it's uh, even if of course I never believe I know more than somebody else, and I don't think that anyone's above anyone else, but I don't like the idea of like the height. It talks about it, and I think in the coddling, it's like the debunking generation, or the like um, they have this entitlement where it's okay to challenge ideas and things, but it's with the undermined, snide, passive aggressive, like almost ad hominem tactics, where it just becomes distasteful and stupid. I guess it's super annoying, which is why I don't even really engage in it. Which is kind of why I haven't really. It probably has a um, negative effect on, I think, what it is that we're doing. Like, we play music, we have this band, we have supposed to have this audience that we are engaged in a conversation with, a dialogue or whatever, some back and forth, and then some supposed to like have these opinions, and but really, I think it comes out in the music sometimes. But when I look around, it's just surrounded by a bunch of fucking retards, and it's
That
like
does come through.
sickening. Yeah,
You
kind of
know,
like maddening in a way.
I wanna get to the album, but I actually wanted to first and foremost ask you about your memoir that's coming with that I guess is available for pre-order with the album, Summertime in Murder Town. Being from Michigan, I actually just took my girlfriend to Flint for the very first time in her life. She moved here from, she
Okay.
used to live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but we just did our first inaugural trip to Flint. She'd
Oh,
never
okay.
been there before. And I was like,
Okay.
it's so weird to see somebody interact with it that's not from the city. So I guess how long have you been kicking around the idea to do a memoir?
Um, I really didn't like the idea. I didn't think it was a good idea at all. I don't like memoirs. I don't like reading people's memoirs. I rarely read them, and I'm definitely not a fan. I definitely don't know how they're written, and it kind of probably comes across in this book. So I hadn't kicked it around. I didn't think it was important because I don't really think I'm that important. And I think it's kind of like a stupid idea, I guess. But I had someone that I know and trust thought it was a good idea, and I guess I kind of thought about it for like 3 or 4 years maybe, and kind of came to terms not with the idea but how it would be presented, which is basically what I try to do with anything, even something that is very opposite of what I want to do. So if you brought a stupid idea to me up and I really didn't like anything about it, I could kind of sit. It might take some time, but sit with it and basically figure out a way to execute it, that is comfortable for both of us. So that's basically what it was. And it's like that with a lot of things we do. I think I'm not against any ideas, um, in principle, but I think the thought needs to go in how it's executed, I guess. So the idea of a memoir struck me as a very bad idea, and I'm not really that type of person. You know what I mean? I don't really care about those types of things. So, but then I thought of the way that I could present it. It was kind of interesting. So it's a handful of stories spanning across summer times of me growing up, you know, and it is taken from like journals from when I was a kid, because I just always have done that. And so there is a handful of cool summertime stories. That's that and that idea I did kind of like. It's not a memoir where, you know, it starts when I'm a little kid and I grow up to be the person I am, and it's my life story because I think I'm important or cool. You know what I mean? It's just a handful of what I thought were cool stories that were in a collection. It does have a kind of linear format that it does go from earlier to later. You know what I mean? It does get more present as the story goes in that sense. But one of the things I wasn't crazy about is I don't really think I've accomplished anything that I wanted to as far as in life. So I didn't feel like it was like the right time to do something like this. But the way that it was formatted and the kind of the execution idea, or the compromise, or whatever that I might have came up with, made it comfortable for me to do. Does that make sense at all?
No, it absolutely does, and I get that feeling of maybe you haven't done enough yet. I actually read a lot of memoirs, not usually tentatively famous people. What I love is like I love comedian memoirs. I kind of like that, you know, in the grit of coming up memoir, and I feel like you, compared to some I've read, you've probably done more than enough to fill at least one book. So I think I'm sure you're in a good place to start at
Yeah.
least.
I thought not. I tried to take my mind off of how little I thought I accomplished and put it onto um, standalone. Where were these stories? Are these stories interesting? You know what I mean? So I tried to take it off of my own bias, I guess, my own dissonance, and focus on, regardless of how you may feel, are these stories interesting? Are they worth reading? Or would you be entertained if you were reading them in a way that you're supposed to? I guess when you read a book, and they were enough to compile them and edit them, you know. So then I also thought it might be good to do sooner than later as well. I thought it would add to the body of work that I'm putting together, I guess, if that makes sense. A lot of people, I guess, become somebody, and then they kind of cash in on a big advance off of their platform or popularity, off the guarantee that they can sell X amount of books. But I kind of like the idea of not being in that position, self-publishing, and then having it kind of be a stone in the path, you know, of the walking path of adding to the body of work, that when more and more people discover what it is that we're doing along the way, they come across this, even if it's years down the line. It isn't like a retirement sum summary kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's still going on, and it's still very, very active project, very young project, very new project. I like that idea that it didn't hold the same stigma as what a memoir usually does, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. It kind of captures a moment rather than a whole story, I guess. You know, kind of adds to it.
Yeah, exactly. So it would
Is
be, I'm not 40 looking back on my 20s like I did something cool and here's a book about it. It's kind of like right here, and for the generation of now, the modern thing you can kind of see in real time. I like that, and I believe in that technologically uh, now, as that is going on right now. So I kind of just wanted to try it with a book. I'd never seen I'd never seen that done. Not that I know a lot about memoirs and stuff, because to be honest, like I said, I kind of stay away from. I don't really care about that many people's lives, which sounds pretty ignorant, but I just I have the least amount of memoirs, I think, on my bookshelf.
I don't think it sounds ignorant. I think sometimes it's a matter of what you're trying to get out of what you read. You know what I mean? If it's to be entertained, if it's to try to follow in the footsteps of somebody, if it's to learn something or expand your mind in some way. There's only so much. Most memoirs are kind of copy and paste in some extent. You know what I mean? It's kind of one arc that we all know, just told through a very specific lens.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. There's like an archetype to the memoir that uh, I don't think this one fits. In a way it does, like I said, because it starts and ends, starting, in a more younger time and ending it in a more little bit closer time to now, and that kind of chronology. But other than that, I don't know. It's all right. It has it's a positive thing, I think, which is another thing that is almost like a silver lining. I don't, not to be corny or anything, but
Yeah.
sometimes when I talk to people that claim to have gotten something out of something that I did that I didn't think anything of, and it's kind of cool, I guess, in a way that you don't suspect it. A lot of the things I do, I don't really think I'm anybody. So when I just doing things and someone mentions something, most of the time I don't even remember that I did it, and then or said it or something, be it a song or an interview or whatever. I don't really keep track of things that I've already done, because I kind of look forward more so, and don't really look back at all. Don't really reflect on things or anything like that. So someone will say something that had some type of positive effect on them in that way, and it'll. I don't want to use the word inspiring, but it's solidifies the idea that I should probably do more of it. And posting on social media is one of those stupid things like that, where someone claims to have gotten something out of something that I think was completely valueless and stupid. Because I think the idea of posting on social media is really stupid. But it seems like a small group of people are affected in a good way by it. So I kind of think if I have the ability to do something positive, regardless of what it means, as far as, is it really positive, does it really work, is it effective, how much does it matter, regardless of all that, then I should, if I remember to do so. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And I do want to get onto the record a little bit. Is there, do you see any, I don't know, thematic, or is there something about this album that made the timing of doing the memoir, releasing the memoir kind of in tow? Is there any connection between the two thematically or aesthetically, I guess, or is it just this is when these things are coming?
um I, if you look, you can find it, but just because it's the common characters in them,
True,
me
true.
being in there. lot of something people don't necessarily enjoy. A lot of the things that I read that people don't enjoy about us is I don't know who they listen to that doesn't do this, but we always kind of get this thing for talking redundantly about the same things, and that's kind of some of the negative criticism that we get. And in that sense, it is connected because everything in our music is a real thing that happens. So the book kind of peels back the layers of the onion on specific things that might be located in songs. You know what I mean? Instances and certain things of that really happen, and they're detailed in some of the music, and they're connected in that way, and they're connected because I author them both. But as far as the timing is concerned, I set a deadline for the book to force myself to do it, because I knew if I didn't, it would never get done. And it happened so that the record got pushed into its timeline. The book I had planned earlier, and the record I had planned for fall, early winter of 18, but the record got pushed. I didn't want to push the book though. The book had already been planned, so the record kind of got pushed into the book, which isn't necessarily the sharpest idea that we've done, but I don't really think it matters. I'm not big on first week numbers, release dates, this event, this will take the momentum from this will, that type of stuff's stupid. I just like to do things, and if someone is into it, they're going to get it regardless. There's a bunch of marketing and tactical things like visibility and other things like that, and that's cool and all, but I really don't care about that stuff. I just care about doing whatever it is that I can and getting it done and getting on to the next thing, just because I guess that's the way I'm living. But the book is really, the book I'm only talking about, I mentioned many other people in my life and things, but I never tell anyone's story. I only tell mine. And the music is the same way. I don't ever involve anyone on what I'm saying, I guess. I would never, give my opinion of someone, or my take, or my relationship with someone. But I don't put myself in other people's shoes. And I think people do that when they don't have stories to tell. When you hear people that play music, write books, whatever, it doesn't matter. They say, I had this experience, and I put myself in this person's shoes and saw the world through this person's eyes for this song. And I don't do that because I don't like to do that. So the way that those two projects are connected I don't try not to come from like an ego kind of thing, but could be a psychological weakness, but I don't put myself in other people's shoes, and I don't tell stories through other people's eyes. Just tell them only through mine. So that's what kind of comes to mind when you ask the question of how connected they are. Is I had noticed when I was reading back on it several times, listening back on the record, I never get into anyone else's story, which I guess does make the critics right that it is redundant in a sense where, oh, King's talking about this again, and King's talking about that again. It's my life. It's the only thing I'm going to talk about. It's my own music. I don't really have anything else to talk about, I guess. If you, but again, I would like to ask, who the fuck is not doing that? I want to know, what groups are you listening to that are not, I mean, even worse, most of them aren't talking about anything.
No, you're right, and I think it's weird because I think even beyond just most other groups, most people, if they really got into the gritty details of their own lives, they would find that they do like maybe 15 things, and they just kind of do those things on a cycle. So the idea that as a creative person, you should somehow be expanding your worldview simply to placate their desire to have something different in their own lives, it's kind of a ridiculous request.
It's ridiculous on a lot of levels, because I don't think it's true. Because, well, when you outline that idea of what you just said, it can't be true. When when you and you said 15, and I would definitely bet against that. I think it's definitely less. But the idea that you can't offer any real answer, it goes back to kind of what we opened up with talking about with the debunking generation, or the big undermine. When you can't give an alternative, you, coming from a pragmatic standpoint, you really don't have an answer. You really don't have an argument. You really don't. You can just, you're better off just saying you don't like it, because you can't offer up anyone that does what you're saying you don't like us for doing. And it's it's nobody. I mean, you can take from the very biggest to the very smallest groups. Where, like, who are you going to use? Metallica, a band that does cover albums and shit. Like, what, you know what I mean? How,
Absolutely.
what is, not? I'm not taking anything away from them, because I like everyone, but the idea is, to me, is, I mean, all these other groups don't even talk about anything. It's just so vague, and so metaphorical, that it's like, who does this belong to? You feel like, and I don't know. It's just, I guess the strength that I see is, at least it's characteristically me. At least this belongs to me. At least after 5 seconds, someone knows it's me, and you don't have to like it, but at least it has that style, and it has that signature look and feel and vibe. But I don't say it as a argumentative way. I'm really curious of examples, counter examples, that people with gripes with what we're doing would have, because I'm genuinely curious of someone that's actually doing what people are saying we're not doing. But that's the thing with the cynical generation, is they they're all armchair philosophers, armchair critics, armchair specialists, but they never have to offer up anything you know in their claims. They never have to offer up anything. You just attack whatever it is that's going on, and that's pretty much good. You don't offer an alternative. You don't even offer a critique. You just bash and slander. Again, guilty of most fallacies, guilty of most cognitive dissonances, guilty of most biases, just wearing them right out on your sleeve. And you offer up no alternative. You just attack it, and that's pretty much it. That's the piece. Click it and get my pitiful journalism some pennies for clicks. It's like, it's weird. You know what I mean?
It is weird, and the big thing I took away from like the coddling of the American mind was their idea that they don't really have a solution for how it gets better. You know what I mean? Like how do we kind of change this weird course that we found ourselves on in that kind of debunking culture, in that kind of call out world of your contribution being to say, but what if, or to say, but not that. Just how do we kind of escape that and get to a better place?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to find. Well, it's not something that Haidt would ever say, but I would always say, what I would say is you can't, because you're dealing with a bunch of fucking moronic animals. Like, the truth is, they don't deserve the platform to begin with. And they don't deserve it because they're not that type of introspective, sharp, well-read, studied, even not well-read or intelligent, curious. They don't have these traits. It's simply an instinctive twitch attack, and for the sake of. There's no depth to it. There's no thought behind it, and it's really narrow and it's really shallow. So you don't, because you can't. And I always use that example that the majority of people are just not going to be agreeable, and you can see this in anything that you do. It's not going to jive with the majority of people. So with these people, it's no different. They don't see that they're just shitting on one thing and going to another as a matter of whatever it might be. Their preference is always, dictated by social things, cultural things, identity things. None of that matters. They don't even see that. It's just that's what it is, and it's not really a big deal to me. But I don't think there is an answer, because it's just morons. It's not. And I don't find that it is, most of the time, I'll say, far off across the board. So, like, these people that you get in the majority of them are not combative, well-armed, equal peers, contemporaries. They're just the morons of the world, who are morons in every aspect. You know what I mean? A lot of these people, they don't have a thing that people go to them for. You're not like, oh, Jim, yeah, he hates X, Y, and Z, but he's a real connoisseur of M, N, and O. You have Jim, who doesn't do shit and has never done shit and is never going to do shit, has a lot of things to say about a lot of shit. And that's pretty much all you have. I mean, you're dealing with journalists who critique people for a living, but live in their parents' basement typing up a blog. It's sad, because people are actually exposed to this type of thing. But of course you can't. I'm not the type of person that wants these things stopped. I don't believe in stopping people from doing things. But it's tricky when you have a kind of cult of personality of that. You know what I mean? You have that thing where it's basically like jumping the shark. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's all it is. And I think it's not an oversight, because coddling of the American mind is a lot more, it's a lot sharper, and it's a lot smarter, and it's a lot more optimistic, and it's it's educational, and it's hopeful and things like that. But the way I see it is, that's 9 out of 10 people aren't that. And the way, when you say something like, how do we come from this and actually engage and do this? Well, you can only do that with the people that are going to actually be valuing the rules to the game, or valuing the system itself. You have to come to terms with 9 out of 10 people aren't even playing the same game. So how are you going to do that? Well, you can't, because they're not in the same universe. Their universe is predicated on running from one town to the next, starting small fires and going, you know what I mean, as far as topics and subjects and stuff. They're not
Absolutely.
engaging in debates.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're picking the absolute lowest form you can pick, which is the internet. It's free. It's anonymous. It's full of losers. They're picking the lowest form to do the lowest thing you can do, which is, anonymously attack people that are doing productive things. It's just like, well, of course you would be doing this because you're on the lowest of the low. The ghetto of the world is the internet,
That's a really great way to put it, and I hadn't heard that description before, but I think you're absolutely right.
I had never had either. I came up with that one on the fly, and then after I said it, I was like, oh shit.
It's good when that works
pretty
out.
Sharp.
Yeah. Well, I always think of that philosophical idea that if anyone of reasonable intelligence and that bar is really low, can find interacting with other people to be a pretty miserable experience. And I think the internet kind of opens the floodgates on that concept because you interact with so many more people.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I would say, when saying the internet is the ghetto of the world, it's like I would say the developed world. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because there are, I can't remember the quote, but there's a quote that in times of is it great comfort or great privilege, even equality feels like oppression, or something like that. Even the greatest equality feels like oppression. That is the internet being the ghetto is that world. The developed world. I don't want to say the Western world because it's not just West. It's the internet doesn't have a geographic location, so it's these splotches all over the map.
Well, let me ask you this, man. You guys have the album coming out on January 25th. That's a week from today. You just wrapped a pretty busy fall tour. I know you were in the UK or Europe just last month. So when are we going to see King back out in the world?
I'm unsure, to be honest. I'm in the world right now. I'm sitting in my car, but I don't know. I don't know when we'll come out because we really only come out when it feels like people want to see us, which seems like a moronically obvious thing to say, but it's not because people don't do that. And we haven't felt that from people, I guess. We did feel it in the UK, which is why we just went. But we kind of wanted to put this record out next week and let it sit with people and see how we felt about maybe going out in the States. There's not a thing that is confirmed or for sure or anything like that, but we wanted to show up in the States where when it was obvious that that is what people wanted. And that's pretty much how we've always done it. I don't like the idea of doing it just for the sake of, I guess. So we'd like to play the new record for people and do all that when it feels like that's what they want. So we kind of wanted to give it to them. And in January, we planned on not doing, anything as far as that goes. I mean, I'm still here. I was working on the next two David EPs that I was going to put out this year and shooting some videos and doing some stuff the past couple weeks that we've been home. But as far as the King record goes, we wanted to put it out and wait for people to see how they felt about it, and then go from there as far as getting back out into the world goes. The world's not really that enjoyable, so
Truth.
we're not anxious to get back out. We wanted to put the record out in a time that we knew everyone was around here anyway, sitting inside because it's cold, and or sitting at work, or sitting somewhere in January. Not too many people do too many things, and so they can kind of sit and listen to it and see how they felt about it, I guess, before we went out again.
Well, I definitely think people are gonna react to it, and I think you're gonna find that demand. But I've had a lot of guests on the show recently that have, especially in the heavier realm, that have been telling me so much about how European fans are just a little bit more on fire about, I guess, heavier music and just kind of more outspoken music that really addresses issues right now than they seem to be finding in the States. Not that they don't like traveling the States, but there's something about European audiences where they seem to connect with that in a way that maybe hasn't fully taken hold here.
Yeah, I really don't know. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's very complex. I think there are things people might overlook, like it was invented over there. It was That's what it is. That's what it has been. You have the idea of this group is traveling halfway across the world to be here. Maybe you're a bit more appreciative of that. Maybe you're not as spoiled as someone, say, on the East and West Coast, who gets pretty much everyone pretty much every year. You have the almost, could be a bias, but this kind of clean slate of, this is an American band coming over here, or what have you. So curiosity, that Xeno kind of idea where it is otherworldly, and it is coming over, and you kind of just hear about it and you read about it, but you never really see it. It's not in your country, it's not on your soil or whatever. I think those play into it, but then I think there is also scarcity, that not everyone goes, and the people that do don't go often, because especially groups our size, it's really expensive to go, and not everyone goes very often. And then I think on top of that, it's just the attitude, I think, is different, I guess. And then that doesn't even say anything about the music itself. That's all just what I think might be subconscious, or what sits. The obvious thing is, and the stupid moron person answer is, they just like the music, but seems to be something else. Seems like there seems to be more things going on than that, from what I gather, and it's cool. I don't much enjoy traveling and things like that, but it is very strange to go across the world and have some rooms be more full than places right here in your own town, your own state. It's very weird. I don't really get too into the whole idea. When we're doing the show, when I walk out, that's when I see that everyone's there. Sometimes I walk out and it's just surprising, surprising that there's that many people there. And you're just like, fuck, this is something. It's just not a habit or a routine or anything. It's still really new. It's still surprising every time. So it's something.
Well, I have really appreciated talking to you about the record, man. I listened to it for the first time a little over a week ago, and it's been sitting well with me. I've liked how you guys grow, but there is something about there's like a thread that kind of runs through everything you do, where you always know to some extent what to expect, but you find a way to keep it feeling fresh and new with each song. And 45 in particular is a track that stood out to me, but I just really wanted to talk to you more about your writing style and kind of how you see the world, because I guess that's what always comes across to me the most when I hear the band is you guys don't really sound like anything else, but you also don't write from a perspective that I feel anyone else is giving. And I think that goes back to what you said about you write what you know and you kind of write your life, and I think that's your biggest advantage.
Thanks. I or disadvantage in some ways. But yeah, I think it's because we're not a very musical band. I guess when we start the song, I already have the composition written as far as the lyrics, the key, the the delivery, and the things like that are they're already done. So the attitude remains intact regardless of what guitar we plan to put on it or what. I just don't like that confine. A lot of groups do it the reverse where they write the cool riff and then think of something cool to say over it. But we don't do that. We don't write anything. It's an a cappella vocal that we start with, and that makes it different. But I think it's also important that it's an not only is it an a cappella vocal, but it isn't written on paper. It's something that I kind of come up with that I think is unrestrained, I guess. It's really hard to get, from me anyway, a natural performance out of something written down. So I don't really like to write on paper. You judge it, you write it, and we all know that because when we talk, it sounds nothing like when we write. And, you're very conscious, you're very aware, and you're very in your own way when you're writing. As soon as you start writing things on paper, it's put under scrutiny that you would never put yourself under when speaking. And I don't believe that that is musical. I think that is bullshit. And it's so contrived when you put together sentences like that. And again, obviously, I'm aware that people don't like the way I put together sentences because I rhyme and whatever it may be, just because I like to. But um, that's kind of the other side of the coin. I guess I don't. It's how I kind of keep my. Well, it's what I like, and it's the music that I like, and that's what I grew up liking, and that's what I prefer. And I believe talent is found and displayed between the rhyming words rather than the layman thinking the rhyming words at the end of the statement is where the skill is displayed. I think it's the opposite. When you acknowledge the rules to chess and when you sit down and play a masterful game, it's because you were both playing within the rules and you found a way to finesse yourself into a victory. And I think that's the way that I write as well. When you acknowledge that you have these, set of rules to the game and you're able to wiggle in them in this way, that's where you display real skill. And that's the writing process, I guess, for us. It starts with an unchained, kind of not contrived vocal performance, which really sucks in some ways because you don't know what you left on the table sometimes when you do a vocal performance to a song that doesn't exist and then you write around it. How do you know that electric energy of the music would not have influenced your performance? So sometimes I will go back and retrack parts or something, but that's just the downside to the way that we do it. But I think stylistically that's probably why King's always going to be King regardless of who's doing what, because it's always going to come from one source, you know. It doesn't matter. All the other things can't matter. No one can come in and change what it is that we're doing, you know. It doesn't matter who we work with, because it doesn't come out any other way, I guess.
Mm. That makes sense to me, man.
Does that make sense, or does that even answer what you? I can't even remember what you asked, but
no, I think you make a good point. I feel like that's what you're talking about in terms of tapping into that creative flow or that creative river of, like, you know, a stream of consciousness in a way. I find myself that that's where the best material lies, and that kind of is where you find your truest self. Because when you kind of do it the other way around, where you hem and haw over lyrics, and you really, or any kind of creative pursuit, and you overthink it almost, when you can really just tap into whatever it is you feel compelled to say or create, that's where the real good stuff comes from.
yeah, that's what I think. And I just come from a bit of a different world. When I was a kid, I kind of talk about this in the book, but I thought I would be a rapper when I grew up, because that's what this whole city is on, and that's all the people that were around me. That's what it was going on. And then when I became a little bit older, I met people that played instruments, and then I didn't think there was much of a difference between rapping and being in a rock band. But the one thing that always stayed with me was that idea of that hip hop mentality, where it is you're by yourself. It's you, and that's it. It doesn't matter who makes the music, who makes the beat, who makes whatever, if you like it, if you don't like it, or whatever. At the end of the day, the words you're saying are just speaking for you. That's it. It's your thing. You're responsible for saying it. And it's very intimate in that sense, to where you don't have a lot of shit to hide behind. You don't have things like, oh, well, I didn't even write that lyric, or I didn't, or this music is going on, or this. You don't have a lot to hide behind it. It's a lot more, it's free form in a sense that it's almost like, jazz in that way.
Hey everybody, it's James. I'm just checking in here to tell you that is the end of the conversation. We had a little bit of phone issue shortly after that last comment from David, and it ended up cutting off the recording, but that's really where we tied things up. And I thank you for making it this far in the episode, and we'll be back in just a couple of days with another conversation with another artist who's really doing something unique in the world of music. I don't want to tell you exactly who it is just yet, because we have a few episodes on deck, and I'm not sure which one we're going to share. But if you've made it this far, thank you for sticking around. I look forward to entertaining you again soon. Now, here's the rest of our outro music.